Hi guys, what's going on and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So today we are going to be looking at the tier 5 Principes. Obviously in the last episode we looked at the tier 4, the Hastati, and we have now moved on to the slightly higher tier 5 Roman Infantry. Also you can expect to get some videos. I'm working through the tier 7 Legion Cavalry, so hopefully we're going to get to the tier 8, the Italian Nobles soon, and we'll take a look at them. And I also want to try and get to the tier 9 Barbarian Cavalry, the Harbingers, before the open beta comes out. So I want to get a bit of a look at them, see how they play out as well. But first, let's take a look at the tier 5 Principes. So they are sort of really the natural progression of the Hastati. They're just like a slight improvement in everything really, statistically. Their attack goes up quite a bit, which is quite a nice feature. They get quite a bit more weapon damage, charge impact, that sort of thing, compared to the tier 4. If we have a quick look, you can see their sort of natural aggression is a bit lower. We also just get a slight increase in defense and survivability, so just an increase in body armor. Obviously, both the Hastati and the Principes were historically Republican units. I think the Principes were the older, more veteran soldiers, so it makes sense. These guys have got slightly increased attack, slightly increased body armor, better equipment, etc. Still woefully slow. That's the worst thing for all the Roman infantry for me, or basically any infantry unit compared to cavalry, is how long it takes to move. You're really committed to a direction when you go around a map, and that's what I find hardest. So I've got these guys pretty upgraded. I'm just missing the final sword upgrade, which just gives sort of a... Well, it's actually kind of an interesting choice, actually. The sword I've got at the moment gives basically increased damage and increased melee attack, but sort of a relatively minor increase in melee weapon penetration damage, whereas the final upgraded sword gives a larger penetration damage increase, but a little less attack and damage. I'm not 100% sure, or have not seen anywhere, the statistics of how much impact weapon penetration damage actually has on sort of the overall damage of a weapon. Obviously, when fighting sort of barbarians or lightly armoured units, increased weapon penetration damage is not going to be a particularly useful attribute, but when you're fighting other sort of Romans or heavily armoured Greeks, that sort of thing, it's obviously a lot more useful. We also have a bit of an interesting choice in terms of the tech tree after this unit. So at tier 5 at the Principes is what we've got here. You'll see that it splits into two. We've got the armoured legionaries or the normal legionaries. And principally, it sort of splits into slight increase of mobility for a slight decrease in armour, or a slight increase in armour for a slight decrease in mobility. So the armoured legionaries, the veteran legionaries, etc., etc., up to the Imperial Guard are all more heavily armoured units, with probably a little more attack, perhaps, than the other units, or very similar, but more armour but less mobility. See, their mobility is 186, 183. 178, I mean that is armoured. 173 8 is just shocking mobility compared to the 266 of the normal legionaries, which is still slow. So I'd say the normal legion, these are more in line with the sort of tier 3, 4 and 5 that you've already played, whereas the armoured legionaries are slower but have much more armour, and much more better once they're in a fight, but are more easily flanked, that sort of thing. And that's principally the choice. I think probably I'm going to go for the armoured legionaries, I would say. I find I tend to play the Romans quite aggressively. I try to just get stuck into a fight as soon as I can. So I think once I'm into a fight, I'll be better off with the extra armour. But I may well try both and do sort of a bit of a comparison video. Maybe that'll be something that people might be interested in. We've also obviously unlocked Vengeance for Germanicus for the first time. I've not quite got him fully upgraded yet at this tier, but this is obviously a really powerful attack. It gives plus 50% melee weapon attack, which is the chance to hit, and plus 50% melee weapon damage, which is the amount of damage you do when you score a hit. And that makes the unit just so much more powerful. So it's well worth doing. But obviously it's got a massive cooldown, 300 seconds, so it's almost like one use per game, or if it turns into a long game, you may get 2 uses out of it. And people may try and bait you into using it, so seem like they're going to get stuck into engagement, and then as soon as you hit Vengeance, they're going to break away from that engagement. And after 10 seconds of being out of fighting, the Vengeance will end, and you won't be able to reactivate it for another 300 seconds. So bear that in mind before you use it. So, having said that, let's hop into a game and see how we get on.
For the glory of Rome.
So we're just loading into the Battle of Marathon. We've got pretty favourable matchmaking, I would say, for this game. Obviously we're top tier, a few tier 4s in there. Even a poor guy, a tier 3 has got put in with us. So that looks pretty favourable. I'm going to initially deploy to the forest, I think. I tend to play the Romans quite aggressively, as I always say. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. It's just kind of how it tends to pan out for me. And I like the forest, the fact you can kind of get close to people without being seen. So I can sort of force people into a fight they don't necessarily want to have at times. But we shall see how we get on. So I'm just going to move up initially. We've got some barbarian infantry on our right and some mounted warband on our left. These are very good cavalry, these mounted warband, particularly for barbarian cavalry. They play more like Roman celeres, really, than sort of the traditional barbarian cavalry, but they're also fast as well. And particularly at this sort of matchmaking where we've got lots of tier 4s, they could do quite well. Barbarian tier 4 barbarian infantry, not particularly useful. But we've also got some archers moving up with us, and those the guy with the tier 3 javelins also moving up. So we've got some auxiliary cavalry in the forest over there. I've got to keep moving up. Obviously I'm a lot slower than the barbarian infantry, and obviously I don't get the barbarian infantry get a attack bonus in the forest for being a barbarian infantry, basically. So you've got to bear that in mind. Looks like these cavalry might end up coming down this way, so we'll just have a little look. Probably the odds of me, no, they're turning in. I was just going to keep an eye on them in case they came right down this edge. I might have been able to get a charge out the forest, or at least throw some javelins at them. So our cavalry have pushed very hard up and gone straight through the forest. Looks like the enemy has got a lot of tier 3 players here in the centre, which is kind of surprising. So we'll keep pushing in. Doesn't look like there's any other enemy units in this forest, so I'm going to start to edge out to see what else we can do. We've got these guys here which are advancing up with their Theban hoplites. If we can get... oh, some Hastati. Let's just get stuck into these guys, basically. I'm not going to deploy all my units at once, so Scorched Earth, careful. Looks like the enemy are going to run through that. Wait for these guys to come through. Get the heavy charge off, straight into the side. That guy didn't get a charge off with that guy because I was sort of got a bit distracted. Got to watch out for this Scorched Earth, try and avoid the bulk of it. I'm going to keep one unit out of the fight just in case anything else turns up. I'm not going to activate Vengeance or anything like that. We're higher tier than them. You know, we're doing far more damage to them than they are doing to us, so I'm not too worried about that. They're going for formed combat, which is really an error in this sort of situation. They're in a tight fight surrounded on both flanks. Formed combat basically means all these people will stop fighting and pull back to try and form some cohesion, and they take a lot of damage in that process. So there's really little benefit. Right, now that Scorched Earth is gone, we're going to quickly start to move up, although it looks like they're going to break in a minute anyway. But let's move up this unit to try and block off any retreat. We've got some Theban hoplites moving in, which is just why I was sort of inclined to keep my units out of this fight initially. So these people are going to move up, get the charge off if we can. We're going a little bit wide with these infantry here. We've also got to watch out for these archers, which are going to shoot us. But I don't think there's going to be anything we can do about it for the moment. Just keep pushing round, keep pushing round. I want to try and get nice and clear if we can. Activate my charge, hopefully get into the back of them. Which we did relatively well there. We've also got more Theban hoplites pushing in from behind. So whether we're going to try and... we're just going to hold and get rear flanked for the moment. Hopefully our morale won't break while we deal with this fight. If we can crush these guys in the middle first, that would be better. We could go for a vengeance now. I think we will. Let's pop a vengeance. I kind of want to demonstrate it anyway. So now our attack is just going to keep building up. We can see, look in the corner, our attack is shooting up as we deal with these two threats we've got in front of us. Obviously they are now kind of breaking off on the fight, so we want to keep up the pressure. Because as soon as we break combat, that means we're no longer going to get that benefit. So let's do that, get the charge, try and get into combat again before the vengeance loses, which it looks like we have done. Obviously we're attacking the front of a hoplite, which is a bad thing, but we are tier 5 and we should outstrip them, hopefully. I'm just sort of brute forcing my way through this fight. It's not a skillful play or anything, but there's not really a lot I can do. These archers are a real pain. I thought we had some friendly archers with us, but they obviously haven't been able to do anything. I'll just put a flag on these guys in case we can get anyone to do anything about it. I'm keeping up the pressure. Obviously vengeance is still activated, so I'm just trying to keep up the pressure on these hoplites. Obviously doing a fair amount of damage to me because of my sort of poor way in which I attack them. But obviously we're being continually archered, so we kind of want to just make a move sooner rather than later. So get close enough. I'm going to activate heavy infantry charge to try and catch them in the side, which we do. And Vengeance is still activated. So we're trying to keep the momentum going with this Vengeance, because when obviously, as I say, when I break the fight, the Vengeance will break. And our Barbarian Infantry have caught up with the enemy archers, which is absolutely perfect. Exactly what we wanted. We're keeping up the pressure on these Theban Hoplites. They're trying to back out in some form of formation, but we're managing to keep up the pressure on them. At least a little bit, although they are quite quick compared to us, so we're struggling to keep up the fight on them. And they're able to back off as quickly as well to keep up pressure. We may end up losing Vengeance shortly. We're still getting a bit of damage on them. You can see the amount of damage we do per hit with each Roman soldier, which is obviously very high. Let's go for charge if we can. Oh no, we can't quite get close enough. And we've got these pikemen to deal with. So I'm going to break off now. We've got some tier 5 archers here we've got to deal with. Try and get out of this fight. Let's try and get a little bit of avoidance on these arrow fires. Okay, I think we're time to enter Testudo to try and reduce the amount of damage. Obviously, we're still walking backwards, so we're going to still take a reasonable amount of damage. Try and back off into this forest a little bit. And then continue to back off from this fight. We've got some tier 4, quite high health pikemen to face off against, which is obviously going to make this fight a little difficult. Just want to get out of these archers. Looks like friendly cavalry may have caught these archers in the open, which is exactly what we want. That's perfect. So let's just keep backing it off. We've got these barbarian infantry down here, quite a cluster of people. Looks like these guys kind of have forgotten themselves a little bit. So let's advance up on here. We've got some enemy mounted warband there. Still a pretty tight fight. There's a lot to play for here. So let's try and pressure these guys here. Particularly with, let's try and catch up with one of the units. Keep these guys pressing up. I don't know if we're in range of an infantry charge here or not. Let's give it a go. Let's go for a charge. They've hit a hostile phalanx, which is obviously a good move on their part. Let's try and get vaguely round them. Oh, no. Let's try and charge into these. We've just been hit by the enemy mounted warband, which is obviously a good move on their part. I'm going to keep up pressure on these hoplites just with one unit while these guys fight the mounted warband. We're obviously going to struggle with this mounted warband. Because these guys are really good for their tier. And we're now being pushed in by the enemy phalanx. And they're not going into hoplite mode, which is obviously clever. We are doing some damage to this mounted warband, but we're losing morale now, I would expect. So we've got our units have recovered. Let's see what we can do. If these guys are going to enter... Oh, one of their mounted warband is routed. Focus on that mounted warband. Try and get some kills on them if we can. Our units are holding on. I'm just trying to get maximum damage against the mounted warband. This is the biggest threat to the game at the moment. Obviously, we're winning in terms of numbers, but these mounted warband, particularly at tier 5, are very strong. So all our units are holding, and we've got some friendly dogs getting involved now. I'm not quite sure where these units are going. It's sort of all a bit of a mess down here with the enemy pikemen. I'm not sure what's going on really. They're not really in phalanx, it's just sort of a spaghetti of pikes. It looks like they're trying to get out of this fight a little bit by the looks of it. I actually don't want to select... I just want to select these two, if I can. Let's try and go for heavy charge if we can. I don't know if we'll be able to catch up enough. Oh yeah, good hit into the back there. Not going to be enough to break their morale, I don't think. But at least we can get a little bit of damage against them. Look, getting some good damage, and they're facing the wrong way. I think they're in phalanx, facing the wrong direction. Which is obviously exactly what we wanted. That mounted warband is going to be a threat to us, because they could potentially come back and come to the back of us, which obviously they're looking to do. But I'm just trying to get damage. Ah, these guys have routed. Right, let's keep the pressure on these guys, look, as they're routed. This is where the Romans come in. Do immense damage very quickly on, routed units like that. We've not got a lot left, so I'm going to pop Vengeance now. No, I'm not, because I pressed the wrong button. And since these guys are running away, I won't bother. It's obviously come back, obviously, as I say, that 300-second cooldown. So we'll turn on this mounted warband, I think, actually. Since these guys are following us, try and get a little bit of damage on these guys. If we can kill these guys like that, that's good. So we've got some routed people here, although their morale is just sort of starting to return. Let's get for the charge. I don't know if they're paying attention. They're not in phalanx. So smack them with a charge. And let's try and get a little bit of damage on them. Now they're not in any sort of formation. They should either break or just be killed easy enough. So we've got a good amount of damage, 4,200. Looks like our barbarian infantry have also done an excellent job this game. So now we need to try and get down the hill here and get into the side of this enemy pike formation, that's the word. I've not got a charge ready. So we're stuck into the fight. Let's press H and activate Vengeance. They've kind of turned in time, but now they're going to get Scorched Earth and charged by the wolf people at the same time. And they're going to rout. They're going to rout. Let's keep up the pressure as they rout. I'm just going to click in front of them and activate a heavy infantry charge and hopefully charge into them like that. Look at that damage, which is exactly what we want. We knocked loads of them over. And now we can keep up the pressure on them and just try and cut them down. I think this is the last enemy unit. Their morale's reformed slightly, but I can't imagine that's going to last very long. As soon as they stand up and they realise they're flanked by everyone. And there goes their morale again. And they've routed. So, let's finish off that unit. Well, that was quite a good game. I think that sort of demonstrated a little bit how I like to play the Romans, at least, with that sort of continued aggression. Vengeance is obviously the most powerful ability that Germanicus has. It's very powerful, particularly when it's upgraded. It can be sort of pretty supreme on the battlefield. But it's trying to trying to keep that continual pressure on. Looks like we killed over 700 enemy soldiers there. We got an exterminator reward, which is good. Kill 700 soldiers in a Roman battle. I don't think I noticed one thing about this game, a little bug, is that the scourge title doesn't seem to be unlocking. I know if you kill 700 people in a battle you get a special title, but I've never seemed to have got that, so I don't know what's going on with that. So score wise, yes, we got 4,700 damage. Particular shout out to this anyway, that bloke, who did particularly well, 5,700 damage, particularly with Barbarian Infantry, extremely well played there. So that was quite a good game. Yeah, I was trying to keep that aggression going, trying to keep that Vengeance activated. Obviously we did very well on the matchmaking, which certainly helped us out in this case. Being able to fight tier 3 and tier 4 units and at most tier 5 units equal tier obviously makes it a lot easier. But I was just trying to keep those units stuck into the fight, keep that pressure going all the time. And that's really where the Romans excel, I think. Just aggression, attack is really the best way to do it. Even if it means you die by the middle of the game, you know, as long as you're doing really good amounts of damage. Early kills are always valuable in these games. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of how the Romans play out. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a like and let me know what you think in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, we've got lots more Total War Arena content coming. And I'll also be doing streams and other stuff like that of this game over the next few weeks. So, let me know what you think. Thanks guys, and I shall see you on the next video.